Good evening. I hope you had a good week. Here is another video to help liberate your mind. So today I would like to talk about beliefs, because beliefs are the very things that create our reality. And when people are hanging on to beliefs that they've had for many years that may not be serving them, it can create a lot of turbulence and a lot of stress. And if you think about it, it's the context of your life. Because when you are going into a situation, you will evaluate how you're responding based on, it goes through your, what we would call your self-image, right? And if you have beliefs that are unhealthy about your self-image, then you're going to filter it through that. And it's going to start to influence your behavior. So what are these beliefs and why do we have them? So beliefs are truths or principles that give us meaning in our life. Things like having faith in religions and things like that, or believing in good causes, or beliefs can help us make decisions in our lives, like whether or not we should eat something. If we believe that we are healthy and we want to be healthy, then we will choose certain things based on that. So beliefs are helpful because they help us to filter information quickly. In fact, if we have a very strong belief, we don't need to actually evaluate. We can make an instant decision about something. So, in other words, if you believe that it's important to be a good person, then you're always going to know what to do in pretty much any situation, right? If you find a wallet on the floor, you're not going to spend time there going, oh, what shall I do with it? You're going to basically do the right thing and you're going to hand it in, which is great. But what if you start to believe something that you don't know is true for a fact, or you assume? Assumptions are very, very dangerous things. So, for example, imagine that you are sitting in a cafe or somewhere like that, or you're stood in a queue or somewhere like that, and then you catch somebody looking at you and you instantly come up with the assumption or mistaken belief that they don't like you. And you have no evidence to back this up. They may have just looked at you funny or something like that. Now, something that's really important for everyone to realize about beliefs is that the moment you assume something or believe something, it instantly triggers a response in your nervous system. In other words, your mind and body start reacting and behaving as if that is true. And then your brain, the reticular activating system at the back, is then going to start to build a case. It is going to look for more and more evidence to back up that assumption. And it will also filter out anything that counteracts that. In other words, your physiology is now geared up to only look for things that strengthen that. You are fully bought into that, and that's why we say that beliefs create your reality. Because if your mind and body are starting to behave in a way that is assuming that something is true, how do you think that interaction is going to go with that person? If you're starting to behave as if they don't like you, you're going to be sending out a vibe that you're defensive, and you might start behaving quite weirdly or almost aggressively towards them. What do you think the outcome is going to be of that? Even if they don't actually dislike you, chances are, because of the way you're behaving and the way you're being towards them, they won't like you. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. So, I mean, if you want to flip that on its head, as a therapist, right, I will use the fact that if I can get someone to buy into a healthy belief about themselves, then I will use every trick in the book to get them there. And that's not manipulation. That's basically helping them to come to the conclusion that they are good enough and that they do deserve to be happy. Because the moment that they believe that that is true, it becomes true. Their body and mind start behaving as if that is true, and it will then start stacking up evidence to strengthen that confidence. So it's very important that we continually check on and update and see if our beliefs are serving us. Because many of our strongest and oldest beliefs date back to a time when we didn't really have the experience and the intelligence and even a fully formed brain. Like most of our beliefs are formed in childhood, right? Between the age of about 1 to 7. And our brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, isn't fully developed until we're at least 21. Now, if we don't have so the prefrontal cortex is all about how we analyze, how we work things out, how we rationalize, how we see things from other people's points of view. So if we're a child that doesn't have that capacity, we often make these assumptions or make these decisions and set these beliefs in place where we make mistakes, right? We misunderstand the situation and we then create a belief, our body and mind start acting as if that's true, and then you start stacking that on. So for example, what happens if you get told off by a teacher and you make it mean something about you? Maybe the teacher's tired, right? Maybe the teacher is stressed out. Maybe everyone's been messing around and you just happen to do or say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and he gives it to you with both barrels. Now in that moment, you as the child can take that very personally, right? He may not have, it might have been a throwaway comment from his point of view, like he didn't think anything of it, but to you, your world falls apart and you make that mean something about you. If he is behaving like that, and he is, it must mean that I'm not good enough or there's something wrong with me. And this happens a lot with parents as well. Like parents get tired, parents get stressed out, and they'll snap at their child and say, why are you so bad? Why are you so naughty all the time? Right? Now the parent loves that child, and again, it's not because they hardly even mean it in that moment, but children take things very personally, right? They soak it all in like a sponge, and that will then become a strong belief which will get reinforced because they're looking for more evidence that backs up the fact that they're bad, there's something wrong with them. So it's important that we continually go through these beliefs, and the way to sort of start to unpick them, if you like, is to ask yourself some questions, right? So I'm going to just give you a few questions to finish on here, right? For example, how is this belief serving me? Now, in order to answer that question, you've got to actually work out whether or not that is good for you, right? Because a lot of these beliefs that we continually keep going, we've forgotten where they've come from. Chances are they're not even relevant anymore. Because if the same situation happened that created us off on that sort of decision that we've then made, we would have handled it completely differently as an adult. So by getting yourself to start looking back, so the next question is a really good one for that. It's like, when did you decide that was true? When did you decide this about yourself? Because again, you're going to now start thinking back to when that happened, but you're now an adult. So when you reevaluate that moment, that memory, from this point of view, you'll probably start to say, do you know what, that's kind of ridiculous. I don't even know how I came up with that idea. I know for a fact that that's not what happened, in the sense that they didn't mean it like that. And here's something to remember. When someone is being horrible to you, whether it's a bully or, you know, a teacher or somebody like that, or someone that you work with, when they're saying those things to you, it's always about them, generally. If you're a good person and you're always trying to do the right thing, if someone's giving you a hard time, it will always be their stuff being projected outwards, and you just happen to be the person they're projecting it at. So knowing that to be true, most of the time, we shouldn't take things personally. Because when we assume things or when we take things personally, we aren't really doing ourselves any favors. My advice to you is, if you need some help getting through beliefs, come and see a specialist like me, because I will be able to ask the right questions and take you through exercises and techniques that help you to uncover. What we want to do here is we want to uncover the unconscious. We want to make the unconscious conscious so we can look at it, reevaluate it as we are now with the experience that we have. A lot of us are now parents. We know what it's like to be a parent, and therefore we're going to have a very different opinion of what actually was happening in that moment, right? And the moment you take the right blocks out, the right evidence, and you kind of see it as it is, the whole thing comes crumbling down, and you drop that like a stone, because you recognize that it's got nothing to do with you, especially not anymore, because you're not a kid. So, you know, the best thing to do after that is start thinking forwards, like, how would it feel if I didn't have that belief? You can use your feelings to back up that evidence, because a lot of the things that keep these beliefs in place are the feelings that come with it, right? So how would I rather feel about myself? How would it feel if this was no longer a problem for me? And just, what would you rather believe instead? All these kinds of questions, open questions, right? Where you really have to go inside and think about it. And it's really empowering to actually take some time, because we always focus on the problem. What would happen if you focused on how you would rather feel, who you would rather be? How would you rather leave people feeling after a conversation with you? There's 101 of these questions. So just start to question your beliefs, realize the power they hold, and decide how you want to feel instead. Have a great weekend.